Hey everyone, it's Hannah and today I'm dressed like that slightly quirky, zany art teacher we all used to have. I don't know why, but the weather is crap, so I'm wearing a knitted jumper. So this video is part of that mini-series that I've been doing to help those of you with a creative business. I'm the business owner behind the Corner of Craft, which is the channel you're on. I dye yarn inspired by Dungeons and Dragons and make beaded stitch markers. I forgot what the other part of my business was. If you want to know any more about my business, please feel free to check out the first video in this series, which is all about how I got it all started 7 years ago and how I got to be a full-time small business person that I am today. As in, my business is small. I'm pretty tall. I'm like 5'7"-ish, a bit taller. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, so today we're getting back to basics. If you want to know the 10 things that I wish I knew before I started my business, if you haven't started it yet, feel free to check out the last video that in this series that I posted. I will link the playlist down below, and I'll also link various videos up in the card as the video goes on. So today we're getting back to business. Back to the basics of business, which I realise will not be relevant to some of you, because some of you already have a successful business up and running, in which case why are you watching this series? But if you have a business up and running, sometimes these things are just useful to revisit. So pop the kettle on, grab yourself a cup of tea. I made mine before I did my makeup, and this is not quick, so the tea is a very drinkable temperature, if not slightly cold. And before we get into the video, I just want to say that this video is sponsored in the form of an affiliate situation. Paper and Spark is a fantastic spreadsheet company. They have spreadsheets for inventory, for pricing, for working out your pricing. They have spreadsheets for keeping track of your finances, coming in, going out. It's pretty amazing. You can get them for Etsy, for Shopify, for Square, for pretty much everything, as far as I have experienced it on my own. This is my 3rd year using them now, and it's ever since I switched to going to Shopify full time, I needed a new spreadsheet situation because my terrible money in going out spreadsheet wasn't working for me. And Paper and Spark have been fantastic ever since. They've got them for euros, pounds and US dollars. They're a US based company. If you have any problem with your spreadsheets, drop them an email and they get back to you really quickly with either solutions, or you send them your spreadsheet and they fix it for you and send it back, because I had some teething problems with my Chromebook. They're all sorted now. And yeah, I use them all the time. So if you want to check out Paper and Spark, please feel free to use the link in the description box below. It will cost you no extra if you make a purchase through that link, but it does kick a little bit back my way, which is always useful because these videos take a really long time. Also, if you'd like to follow me on social media, please feel free. Links can all be found in the description box below, as well as a link to my coffee account. I forgot what it was called then. Once again, no obligation. Okay, now I've stopped talking about myself. First things first, we're going to talk about what you sell. It sounds like a really easy, obvious thing. I have my notebook down here, which is why I will be looking down every so often. But if your business is a long-term goal, you're going to want something that you enjoy and you're passionate about. There's nothing worse, I can imagine, than getting 2 years into a business that you've built up a customer base for, and then all of a sudden you realise you really hate making that thing now. It's not a good look. So you need to find something that you really enjoy, that you're really passionate about, and something that you can see yourself liking long term, because your customers are going to be able to tell if that fire has died. That sounded a bit cliche. So next you're going to want to try to work out what your USP is. A USP is a unique selling point. It's something that will set your business and your products apart from everyone else's. The handmade business world can be a bit of a noisy place sometimes, and working out what your USP is going to be a way to set you apart from all those other businesses. For example, I'm going to use myself as an example because I know myself so well. I love playing Dungeons and Dragons, nerd, and I love yarn, So I did a bit of looking around and couldn't find many people. There were some, but I could not find many people, especially in the UK, who were dyeing, or in Europe, full stop, Dungeons and Dragons themed yarn. So I love both of these things, so I thought, why not bring them together and make it a thing? It sets it apart from other people, all the other many yarn dyers that there are. It's my one little niche thing that I have that is different from these. I know some people also just buy from me because they like the colours, but you never know. Something else that is quite important to do early on is find out or work out who your target market is. Because this is really helpful for basically everything, like branding and pricing and marketing and so many different things. You can kind of invent your ideal customer in your head. Give them a name if you want. I haven't named mine, but you will want to, you can make them as niche as you like. You would want to kind of work out their approximate age or age range. You will want to work out what their key interests are, kind of what financial situation they're in, all of that, because that will affect all of those other parts of the business that I mentioned just a second ago. For example, I could say, this isn't my ideal customer, I'm just off the top of my head. For my stitch markers, I could say they are between, I don't know, 25 to 40 approximately, with quite a steady income, because the price of my stitch markers can be conceived to be quite a luxury item. Predominantly female, because knitting is predominantly female, which is a stereotype, I fully admit, and I do have some very lovely male customers. Hi, if you're watching. But yeah, that kind of thing. Interests: knitting, crochet, yarn crafts. Could also be worn as earrings, I suppose. I don't know, I could just be making this up. It doesn't matter if this exact person with all of these niches and whatnot doesn't exist in real life, that's fine. Because various aspects of this person will exist in different people, and they will all be part of your target market. For example, Bill down the road might knit, but he might be 60, but he might still want to buy my stitch markers from me, along with Joanne, who's 35, who crochets. I don't know, that was terrible. You get my drift, hopefully. At the end of last year, I bought the Indie Roller Handbook, which I will say has been incredibly helpful for my business. I need to give it another read through. I'll pop a link to it in the description box below, because I'm pretty sure, like 95% sure, Leona, the author, has released digital copy. You can't buy the hard copy anymore, but you can buy the digital one, I'm pretty sure. So I will link the website down below, and you can go and treat yourself if you want to. Once again, that one isn't an affiliate, that's just I really enjoy this book. So something that Leona, the author, talks about is values, and it sounds really cliche and really cheesy and blah blah blah, but it really helps if you can think of some values that you have for your business. It creates consistent content throughout, everywhere, on social media, on your website, on anything that you put out into the world. If you reflect back to your values, it helps to keep your branding and your message and everything kind of clear, you know. So for example, I could say that mine are fun, colourful, and community. I think community was definitely one of mine. I can't think what mine are off the top of my head. I got them written down in a notebook that's downstairs. But yeah, if you try and think of that, then various different aspects of your social media can try to reflect that. As I've mentioned in an earlier video, my online community to me is extremely important. After moving to Germany and not having many friends, and being very depressed, I sought a lot of solace in the online community. So creating a space like that now is still very important to me, and I try to get that feel across in my podcasts. In some of my social media posts, I ask a question, try to get a conversation going, and yeah, just try to get a sense of community. I know it does sound really deep and really intense, and sometimes feels a little unnecessary to do, because I did think that when I first thought or first read it, I was like, oh, sounds a bit cheesy, but it does actually really help. So my light's changed, the sun has come out, and it's bouncing off the wall that's just behind. Ooh. But yes, it does help if you post and keep your branding somewhat in mind when you're posting and what you're posting and why you're posting. So we're going to be moving on to branding. I've briefly mentioned it. It needs to reflect your target market. Like, how professional am I being with these cheesy nails? So professional. But I'm not a branding expert by any means. I'm not a graphic designer. I haven't hardcore researched this, but you can kind of tell branding and how important things are. I don't know, the font, the colour, the images, all need to be something that is kind of appealing to your target audience, or just to you, in all fairness. But like, it's hard to picture Coca-Cola being anything but red. I mean, they even changed the colour of Father Christmas because he used to be green. Fun fact, if you didn't know that. But then Coca-Cola got their mitts in him and now he wears red. But you also want your text or your font to be very clear and easy to see and eye-catching. I won't lie, I have definitely bought things before because I really like the logo. Went to a coffee shop in Hamburg and I bought a t-shirt from there because I love the logo, and I don't even drink coffee. So if you're like me and your strengths don't necessarily lie in images for your logo, there are several different solutions. I mean, I managed to create my Chromatic Yarns logo, so I don't know why I said that I don't have the talent. It took ages, but I've managed it. But you can find someone whose logo that you like, and you could drop them a little message and say, hey, I really like your logo. I don't want to copy your logo, obviously. I was just wondering who designed it for you, because I was thinking of hiring them to design something for my business. If they don't get back to you or they say no, then you haven't lost anything. You haven't gained anything either, but you're still in the same situation that you were in. Another thing is, if you find an artist that you really like on Instagram, you could drop them a message and ask if they would design a logo for you and how much that would cost. Also, there's websites like Fiverr and such where you can pay money to people and they can do various things. There's various different ones. Like design a website for you and blah blah blah. They don't only cost a $5, sometimes they're a bit more, but I'm sure there's someone on Fiverr that you could hire to maybe design a logo for you if you give them the kind of feel that you want to go for and stuff. So something else that is quite important and often overlooked is where you're going to set up shop. There are so many marketplace websites like Not on the High Street and Etsy and Folksy, and I must have written more down. Facebook shop, that's definitely one. But you might also choose to set up your own website through a host like WordPress or Square or Wix. Is it Wix? That just makes me think of the hardware with the annoying adverb in my Wix. I hate that. Anyway, or Shopify, which is what I currently use. The appeal of using a marketplace, which is what we're going to talk about first, over hosting your own website is, I understand it because I started on Etsy myself. It's basically like a big search engine for shops and products, which is both good and bad. It's really good if you're just starting up because it gives people a chance to find your wares. If your search engine optimization is good and your tagging is on point, but it does also list your competition next to you, so you know it can be a struggle to stand out. But Etsy's good because, I don't know, like a lot of people, I go to Etsy immediately if I want to buy something for someone, and I search for the thing. I don't know, if you search earrings, you can go on Etsy and there's loads, whereas if you have to find a specific person, then you have to find a specific person. I might just be talking out of my feet. Yes, they can be very good to when you get started up and set up, and they can be very helpful on getting your shop and products seen and out into the world. After, must be, so if I've had my business open for 7 years and I switched over to my own website, so it must be 5 years that I was on Etsy. Just around 5 years I was on Etsy. I switched because Etsy fees started to increase and they started to put Etsy fees on ridiculous things like postage and stuff. So yes, I started to move away from Etsy because of all the fees, which is one of the downsides, is it's not very customizable. You're basically stuck on Etsy branding. You can kind of customize your page, but at the same time you can't. All Etsy shops look the same in the layout and such. You can embrace your branding through your thumbnails, but you can't do anything about the font, you can't do anything about the colours. It's still going to predominantly be that orange. And oh, the sun off that wall, it's very bright. And also, if very often, not all the time, if someone purchases something off of Etsy, they will very often say, when someone says, oh, where did you get that? They will very often say, oh, I bought it on Etsy, as opposed to, of course, the bin men, as opposed to listing the shop that they got it from on Etsy. Sorry for all the background noise. I live in Nottingham. I live in a city. It's very noisy everywhere. Hopefully we're moving a bit further out of Nottingham soon, if our house sale ever goes through. Okay, the bin men have gone. So one of the downsides of one of these marketplace websites is that they can change the fees at any time they want. Like I mentioned earlier with Etsy adding on fees to postage, they then started charging people who purchased through an advert that they didn't necessarily want. I don't know, I got out of there pretty early on. They also pulled on Amazon and tried to encourage everyone to do free postage, which is just ridiculous of a thing to expect of a small business. I just need my desk. But yes, we'll get off of that. But I briefly mentioned SEO, and we're going to get back onto it. You will want to look up the basics of SEO, search engine optimization, how to make your product stand out against all the others on your marketplace website of choice, and also just for how to make your things come up in search engines. I'm going to go into incognito mode on my phone and search Dungeons and Dragons yarn and see where I come up, because I don't actually know. I'm very fortunate in that my social media marketing is pretty good, so I don't rely on it too much. Oh, I went into incognito mode so nothing else would influence it, and there I am at the top. Oh, I'll take it. I like it. Yep, not bad. Wasn't logged into Google or anything. I mean, I'm not going to do the same for beaded stitch markers because I know that I'm not at the top. Etsy is very high up for bead weaving stitch markers. I need to be better at SEO for stitch markers. But yes, yeah, so you need to look up SEO and how to stand out and how to make your product come up very high up on Google, on Etsy, on whatever, because that will really help you out in the long term and help out finding people finding your business. Also, these things change, so it's always good to every 6 months to a year have a bit of an audit on your website. If you currently have a website, have an audit on your website like I just did. Search what you think your keywords are and see where you come up, and then try to see how you can improve your SEO. I obviously need to improve my SEO on my stitch markers, so that is what I'm going to be doing at some point soon, she says, and then she'll forget as soon as this video is done. So I've switched to Shopify. I've moved on to my own website, which has actually done me very well. It's a monthly fee of, I believe, $29, or you can choose a more expensive one, which gives you extra perks. And I have found this to be very helpful and very good. In part because I already have an established customer base, I already have an established business, I already have my marketing means somewhat down, even though not fully. And yeah, you have a bit more freedom on your website to reflect your branding a bit more. You can have your logo in more places, you can choose what fonts you want. I don't know, it's just a bit more personalized and customized, but it's up to you what you choose. There's obviously downsides as well to Shopify. It's more difficult to search, you've got to work harder on marketing and blah 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 blah. So the final point that I'm going to touch on in this video is photography. Yes. The only thing that people have to go off when shopping online is your product description and a photograph. So if your photograph is crap, please excuse my French. then how are people going to know what they're purchasing, what it looks like in person, whether or not it's good quality and such? I don't know. If you're at a market, you don't need to take photos. People can see the thing in person and think, yes, this is great. If they're buying it online and you've taken a picture basically in the dark off of a potato, and it's terrible quality and they can't see anything, people aren't going to buy it. They're going to bypass it and go to the one next door that might not be as good as yours but has much better photos so people can actually see what they're buying. I'm getting a bit sassy. I think I'm getting peckish. What time is it? 25 to 12. Yeah, I think I'm probably getting a bit peckish. The hanger's coming through. So you want to try to stand out with your photos. Try to stay somewhat on brand. I try to do this more so with my yarn than my stitch markers because I don't really know how else to photograph my stitch markers. I photograph them more consistently, so hopefully if you see them anywhere online, you can know that they're mine because I photograph them all on the same background. My yarn, because it's Dungeons and Dragons inspired, I have a lot of dice because I hoard everything. And I try to find a dice of a corresponding colour to the yarn and photograph them both together, which is pretty cool. And that seems to go down okay. So if people look at the picture of the yarn and the dice, they will know that it's somewhat tabletop RPG themed, if not specifically Dungeons and Dragons. And that's kind of what I want to convey. So if you see a picture of yarn with dice in it, you can hopefully assume it's mine. The more pictures of something, the better. I'm not very good at this. I'm very lazy at photograph days because I hate them. But they're necessary. You can take very good pictures on a phone. You don't necessarily have to get a super expensive posh fancy camera. I use a camera for my yarn. I use my phone for my stitch markers because my camera's not very good at like close-up things. But it's better for yarn than my phone is. I don't know, it's very confusing. I got a better phone so I could use it for pictures, and then immediately the camera just went not as good because I'm obviously using it all the time. It's also recommended to have some lifestyle photos. So for example, if you make candles, having a picture of those candles on a mantelpiece, or having your stitch marker clipped on your knitting or something like that, because it helps people not only get a gauge of scale, but it helps people envision that product being in their life, on their mantelpiece, on their knitting, and yeah, it can help to sell an item. In theory, if you are consistent with how your photos are taken and the setup that you have, for example, if you always have it on the same pink background, if you always have the same board around it, or like me, you always have yarn in it, hopefully in theory people should be able to see a picture crop up on their social media or on Pinterest or wherever and know that that is your picture, your listing. That's the goal that we want from photography. You know there are those Instagram accounts out there that you can look at it without even looking at the name and being like, oh, that's obviously so-and-so, because they're so consistent in their branding. So there we have it. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. If you're still sticking with me, thank you very much. I think I maybe had 2 sips of tea. Oh, it's cold now. Oh, good thing about Bird and Blend is it still tastes good even though it's cold. A feather. Yes, so that is everything. If there is anything else that you think that you'd like me to cover in this series, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. If there's any tips or advice that you want to offer to people that I missed out on, once again, feel free to leave it down below. Let's get a bit of a conversation going. Like I said, the community aspect of the YouTube thing is very important to me, so I want to continue it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, feel free to subscribe. I also host a fortnightly podcast here on YouTube in which I talk about the things that I'm knitting and crocheting, so if that's something that you're interested in, once again, feel free to subscribe. Links to all of my social media can be found in the description box below, as well as a link to Paper and Spark, which is an affiliate link, if you want to check them out for your own financial spreadsheet needs. And also, I mean, sure, I'll pop in my link for Bird and Blend as well, because why not? Let's pop all the links down there. All of them. And the indie roller. If you'd like to support me and not want to add to your yarn stash, of which mine is plentiful, I completely understand. Feel free to donate me a couple of quid on coffee. It means the world. And yeah, it means that videos like this can still keep going because they take me all day to do, and a day doing this is a day of me not dyeing yarn or not making stitch markers. Oops. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye. If you'd like to know the 10 things that I wish I'd known before starting my business, feel free to click that video over there. There might be some nice little gems in it for you. You never know. I put a lot of thought into that one. There were many things. I had to whittle it down to 10, so let me know what you wish you'd known too in the comments.